All right, so here it is. This is going to be my long-term review on the Timex Q GMT Quartz. This is a really awesome watch, and I've owned it for almost 2 years. I just wanted to do this video to kind of give you some information. Maybe you're in the market for a GMT, you don't know which one to choose, or maybe you already know about this particular model and you just want some more information on it. I don't think I've seen too many long-term reviews on this watch, so hopefully get some value out of it. Okay, so let me start off by saying this watch is not a re-release, even though it's part of the Timex Q 1978 re-release models. This watch is more of a vintage release inspired homage. And I say homage because, I mean, just by looking at this watch, you can tell kind of what Timex is trying to do, or at least trying to pull off. I think they're going for that like vintage Rolex GMT master kind of look. And I mean, in my opinion, they nailed it. They really nailed it. I totally get those vibes from this watch. If you just, I mean, look at the bezel. It's like a faded red and a faded blue. It's not quite that poppy blue that you get from the newer GMT Master 2s anymore. So it's even the numerals on the bezel, if you look at them, they're pretty vintage inspired. So if you check out the case itself is actually a 1-to-1 for the Timex 1978 reissue and the 70s watch. It's basically the same. So if you own one of those watches already, you'll know how this is going to wear. It's got that same kind of UFO shape that people talk about. And the lugs also as well are 18 millimeter, but they extend outside of the case. So it's kind of like an integrated bracelet, but not really. You can actually swap it out. The bracelet's not too bad. I mean, it's pretty comfortable. The stamped, it says Timex on it. It's like a double pusher clasp. It has a slight taper, and I think that Timex did a pretty good job. I mean, it's actually, one of the bracelets that were on the Timex Q models from the 70s. So if you look up pictures of the vintage 70s, you'll find some of these bracelets on there. This one is a little bit better than the original re-release, which was an arm hair puller. But this one doesn't pull your arm hair, so don't worry if you're thinking about rocking it on the bracelet. When you look at the case back, I mean, there's nothing really special, but I love the fact that they have that coin slot battery hatch. I don't know, there's something about it that it's like very nostalgic. It's just a nice little touch from Timex, something to bring the authenticity of the re-release and the vintage vibes. And to give it some more vintage vibes, I found that for me, this watch really looks nice on this distressed, like ginger coffee colored strap. I have had this strap for years. I don't even know where I got it from. I just know it's so beat up and dirty, and I love it. I love how it looks. I think it adds to the vintage appeal of it. So, I mean, you could like the stainless steel too. It doesn't look bad. Both look good. When we take a closer look at the dial itself, I think that Timex, again, they did a really good job. I mean, they kept it simple. When they did the re-release, they didn't have the applied markers. But here you can see that they have the applied markers. And also, they don't have like the faux vintage Lume. On the Timex re-releases, you'll see that they have this like yellow kind of hue to the Lume. Also, the text, pretty straightforward. Q, Timex, and GMT Quartz, which I also love. There's no water resistance on there, but the water resistance is 50 meters, which is perfect for a GMT watch that you're not really going to take in the water. The date window is pretty small, but it gets the job done. It has a nice little white border around it. It's not intrusive. It all plays well. Like everything really just makes sense on the watch. It's really simple, really nice. Even the minute markers, they're just plain simple minute markers, and that makes this watch super legible. The Swiss movement is a nice change as well. It's a Ronda movement. Timex usually go for a Seiko movement, but this one is so quiet. Timex is, if you didn't know, they're known for kind of like loud ticks in their quartz, but this one is dead quiet. The movement itself, being quartz, is great. It gains about 10 to 15 seconds per month. The bezel itself, honestly, is my favorite thing about the watch, hands down. The design of it, the numerals, everything, it just screams Rolex GMT Master. color on it is amazing. It's got like this faded like lacquered color to it, but it still plays with the light. It is a friction bezel, so it is bi-directional. There's no clicks at all. I know that they put the spacer here and it is silver colored. In the reissue that they did, I think it's like a light blue. So I appreciate that they did it silver because I think it blends better with the watch. One of the things that I was worried about was the bezel actually just moving on its own, but I'm pushing it really hard with my finger. You can't really tell, but I'm pushing it as hard as I can, and it doesn't move. The only way it moves is if I go with both fingers like this, and then it just moves really seamlessly. So after having this watch for a while, I'm pretty confident that I can set it to whatever time and then, it's not going to move. So if that's one of your worries, I definitely wouldn't worry about that. So let me put this on really quick. So give you a quick wrist shot of what it looks like on the bracelet. You can see that Timex there. It just forms really nicely to the wrist. And then here it is what it looks like. Look at that bezel. The bezel is so nice. Every time I look at it, I'm just like, yes. It all comes together really well. The bracelet is thin, but also, that's part of the style. It just looks like you're a Pan Am pilot. And I don't know if you guys can see this crystal here. The crystal distortion on this watch is really crazy. It's an acrylic crystal, so kind of scratches really easily, but that also adds to part of the vintage charm. I can't wait to get a couple more scratches on this crystal so that it gives it a different kind of vibe. If I hate it, I can obviously always polish it out, but I think that a couple scratches on the crystal will look really nice. And of course, when you mix it with the leather strap, this very distressed, very discolored, it just adds more to that kind of look. So I'm going to cut here and give you guys a shot of what that crystal looks like. Okay, so I got my macro lens on here just to give you guys a quick shot of this crystal, get a little closer. And you can see those hour markers as well, that red GMT with that lollipop hour hand and a close-up shot of the bezel. It has like a little graininess to it, which I really like as well. You can really see it on the numbers, and when you get it just right on the angle here, you can really see those applied indices start to morph into different shapes, and the distortion is really cool. Here's a close-up of that inner ring of the bezel so you can see, and the bracelet as well. As you can see, it's not bad. It's not a bad bracelet, guys. The stamped clasp is one thing, but it's doable. Again, that domed crystal is amazing. I really like it. Okay, so I just switched out the strap for the leather one just to give you guys a quick wrist shot of that to see what it looks like. And this is my daily driver look for this watch whenever I take it. There's just something about a GMT on a leather strap that just adds to the appeal for me. I really enjoy it. I think this is a look worthy of those vintage aesthetics with that bezel. So I want to show you guys how the movement works for the GMT. Some of you might already know, but if you don't know, I just want to demonstrate it for you really quick. You're going to pull out the crown to the first position, and when you rotate the crown forwards, it changes the date. It has a quick set date, and to activate the GMT hand, you're going to spin it the other way. The GMT hand moves independently from the actual time. So you can use this to set a local time. You can use this to set a different time zone. When you set it, then you can kind of line it up and, do your thing. So in the second position, all the time hacks, all the hands become slave to each other, and you can set your GMT time that way. This is what people call an office GMT, meaning that the hour hand doesn't jump in hour increments. Instead, you have to independently set the GMT hand whenever you travel. Not a big deal. And actually, towards the end of the video, I'll show you guys how to set this watch perfectly. I found a little trick that helps me set it perfectly every single time. So before that, I wanted to explain to you guys why I went with a Quartz GMT over an automatic GMT. So at the time that I bought this watch, Seiko just had released their actual GMT watch. So why did I pick this one? Basically, it comes down to functionality and also reliability. When work started picking up for me, I needed a way to track my home time without having to, pull out my phone all the time. So I definitely entertained the idea of getting a GMT watch. The problem is that I didn't know which one to get, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money at first and then hate it after. So I bought this cheap harness GMT. I got it off AliExpress for like $60 just to see if I even liked GMTs. It's unidirectional bezel, definitely just a dive watch with GMT movement in it, Parnas's GMT movement, and it was cool. I enjoyed it. It definitely made me realize that I wanted a GMT. The Parnas is 40 millimeters and the Timex is 38 millimeters, so that's another reason why I went with the Timex. I know that the Seiko GMT is right around the same dimensions as the Parnas, so I think that the Parnas wears just right on my 6.5-inch wrist, so it's not bad. I just really enjoyed the smaller look of the 38 millimeter. And probably more importantly, I don't wear a GMT on a day-to-day basis. Really only when I need to travel, or I guess like on a spur of the moment, like, hey, I'm just going to wear a GMT today, I guess. So what I found with the Parnas was that, I would put it in my watch box and then, go throughout the week. And whenever I did have a spur of the moment, I want to wear a GMT thing, I needed to wind up the Parnas. I needed to set it up and, do the whole thing. How nice would it be to just have like a GMT grab and go piece? So I started wondering, were there any GMT quartz? And then, I landed on this watch. The funny part was that because it was always set, I started wearing a GMT more than I did normally because it was just always ready to go. It became like a grab and go piece for me. And the last thing was basically just reliability. So I travel and I only take one watch. So when I take a watch, it's got to be reliable. And to me, there's nothing more reliable than quartz. I know that when I pick it up, it's going to be accurate no matter what the next day that I wake up. And if I have a business meeting, I know that it's going to be accurate to the second, no problem. It has rekindled my relationship with quartz watches. My overall experience with this watch has been definitely positive. It just has a certain charm and distinct look to it that I really enjoy. All right, so what are the pros and what are the cons of owning this watch? I'm going to try and keep this list pretty brief. So the first pro I would say is the style and the aesthetic of it. I think it's a classic look that's being recreated by Timex, and I think that they knocked it out the park. The second one is definitely going to be the movement as a pro. I know that it's quartz, and this might not be a popular opinion, but I really enjoy the fact that this watch is quartz and that it's always on time and that I can just use it as a grab-and-go piece. The next one for me is going to be about the brand, Timex. So I know some people, give Timex a bad rap and they're associated with, cheap quartz watches. But there's nothing wrong with that. I think that Timex is a brand with actual substantial history in America as a watch company, and to have a nice little piece like this from a brand such as Timex, I think that that's a nice little bonus. I think everyone should have at least one Timex in their collection. Moving on to the list of cons, the first one is definitely the Lume. If you are looking for a watch with Lume, if you are a Lume fiend, if that is your thing and you must have a watch with Lume, then this is definitely not the watch for you. I'm going to be honest with you. The Lume that you see here, it literally only lasts 30 minutes. This is what the Lume looks like when you shine a UV torch on it. And 30 minutes later, this is what it looks like. It's pretty much illegible. So the Lume will get you through you walking down a dark hallway, but that's probably about it. The other con for me would be the bracelet. The bracelet's not bad. It definitely could be better, especially now for what you can get for $200 plus. But at least it's comfortable. I would say the biggest downfall of the bracelet is the lack of microadjust. The actual links themselves are small enough almost to make a microadjust, but not quite. So that's down for me. The next negative for me is actually with the movement. So the movement, yes, it's quartz and it's reliable and great and everything. there's a problem with the GMT hand in these watches, and I think this problem extends to the Ronda movement itself. So you could find this in a lot of other Quartz GMT watches. I actually had this problem with the Parnas as well. When you set the GMT hand, for some reason, it takes about 10 minutes to engage. And I'll touch more upon this in a little bit because I want to show you guys how to set this watch perfectly so that the GMT lines up every time. And I'm sure that, with every watch, there's, something that you can knit and pick, but these are substantially the ones that matter to me the most, that I think actually matter in your day-to-day wear. And now I just want to show you guys a little trick on how to set the GMT hand perfectly every single time. I learned it over the years just messing around with the watch. So the GMT hand takes about 10 minutes to activate for it to lock in. So to do this whole setup, you're going to have to hack the watch around like 40 to 45 seconds, and then you're going to set the time. So it can be whatever time. It doesn't really matter, whatever time you want it to set it to. Just make sure you set it 10 minutes before. So if you're setting it to 1, you're going to set it to 12:50, just like this. And then what you do is you put the watch in the second position to activate the GMT hand, and you're going to set the watch whatever time zone. It doesn't really matter. You can just set it right on the dot, right at the dot. So I'm going to set it to 4. So right at 4. And then you're going to hack the time again. And now you're going to set the actual time. So whatever time you want the watch to display. And what that's going to do is, because the GMT hand takes 10 minutes to engage, you're just basically adding those 10 minutes yourself by setting the time 10 minutes beforehand. So when you actually set the local time and you start moving the minute hand, you'll see that the GMT hand starts to engage right when you hit the 00, the 12 o'clock mark. And there you go. Now when you spin it forward, the GMT hand is going to hit the hour marker every time perfect. So you don't have to worry about it being a little askew or a little off. So just a little trick I learned. I hope that that helps you out. And that's pretty much it, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. It's my first one, actually, so if you really enjoyed it, like and subscribe, and I'm going to try and come out with some more interesting videos for you guys. Stay tuned for the Quartz history of Timex Q. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. If you like that, then I'm going to release that pretty soon, as soon as I'm done putting it all together. So take care, guys, and until next time.